So, today we're pulling back the curtain on something fascinating: the architecture of your choices. We're going to look at the hidden blueprint, that internal system that's running your life, a lot of the time without you even realizing it. All right, let's get right into it. Ever have that feeling? You know exactly what you should do, but it's like there's this internal tug of war going on, and somehow you end up doing the complete opposite. It's so frustrating, right? And it's really easy to just beat yourself up and think it's some kind of personal failing. But here's the big idea. What if the problem isn't you? What if it's not a lack of willpower or some kind of character flaw? What if the real issue is a glitch in the system, a breakdown in the very architecture of how you make a decision in the first place? All right, section 1, the self-control paradox. And that's really what we're talking about, isn't it? That incredibly frustrating gap between what we intend to do and what we actually end up doing. So we're going to break down exactly why this happens, and even better, what you can do about it. So the key to cracking this whole paradox is this concept called the decision loop time. I want you to think of it like the operating system that's just running in the background of your mind. It's a framework that maps out this invisible but totally predictable 8-stage sequence that drives every single action you take. Okay, section 2 is all about mapping your decision loop. So what does this map, this architecture, actually look like? Let's lay out the whole thing because, just seeing it is the first real step to getting a handle on it. Okay, so here it is, the 8 stages of every decision. It all starts with a trigger that sparks an emotion. Then your mind creates an interpretation of what's going on, which leads to a desire. From there, you evaluate your options, you make a choice, you get an outcome, and then the final crucial step, reinforcement. The whole pattern gets locked in. And the crazy part, this entire sequence can fire off in a split second, totally on autopilot. And this is the most empowering part of this whole idea. You have to understand, this is not a runaway train that you're just a passenger on. No way. You can actually step in, you can intervene at any one of these 8 stages to get back on track and make a choice that feels truly aligned with the person you actually want to be. All right, section 3, intervening upstream, mind and emotion. See, the thing is, the most effective place to jump in isn't right at the moment of choice. It's way, way earlier. We're going to go upstream, back to where the real leverage is, in your mind and your emotions. So let's zoom in on stage 2, emotion. Right after some kind of trigger happens, this emotional wave is the very first thing to rise up. And that wave sets the entire direction for everything else that's about to happen. And here's why this is so critical. If that initial emotional wave is just, totally unregulated, if you're feeling overwhelmed or anxious or angry, the rest of that loop is almost guaranteed to fly off the rails. So the key intervention here, it's not about suppressing the feeling, it's about regulating it. Seriously, something as simple as taking 3 slow, deep breaths can be enough to just steady that wave, so you can make a decision from a place of clarity instead of just pure impulse. Okay, so right on the heels of that emotion comes stage 3, interpretation. This is the moment your thinking mind just jumps right in and immediately cooks up a story to explain what you're feeling and what's going on. And this is such a perfect way to see how that can get distorted. Look, on the one hand, you have the objective fact, just the neutral data of what is actually happening. But then you have your mind's story about it. And so often that story turns into a catastrophe narrative, right? We jump to the worst possible conclusion. The big move here is learning to see the space between the two, to separate the facts from the story we're telling ourselves. Okay, so moving into section 4, designing your aligned choices. Because once you start getting a handle on those early stages, the emotion and the interpretation, you can actually start to consciously design the outcomes you really want. So let's talk about how you become the architect of your own choices. So let me ask you a question. Where does a bad decision really begin? I mean, think about it for a second. The last time you made a choice you really regretted, where do you think it all went wrong? Well, for most of us, we blame the choice itself, right? We focus on stage 6. That's the moment we actually ate the cookie, or snapped at our partner, or hit the snooze button for the 5th time. We look at that action and think, yep, that's the single point of failure. But here's the thing. The real collapse, the point where things actually went sideways, that usually happened way, way earlier. You didn't just choose to eat the cookie out of nowhere. The system broke down back at stage 3, interpretation. That's when that unregulated feeling of stress got interpreted as a story, like, oh, I deserve this, the day is shot anyway. That's the real root cause. Okay, now let's jump all the way to the end of the loop, to stage 8, reinforcement. This one is so important because it's the stage that locks in our habits and our beliefs for the future. See, every single time you complete one of these loops, this final stage reinforces something. It could be a good habit, it could be a bad habit, a belief about yourself, even a fear. The big intervention here is to consciously redirect that pattern. So when you make a choice you're proud of, an aligned choice, really let that sink in. Let it build your confidence. And when you make a choice that's not so great, don't beat yourself up. Treat it as neutral feedback. It's just data. This is how you build the identity you want, one choice, one loop at a time. And all of this brings us to our final section, which is a really powerful shift in perspective. Mastery, architect, not fighter. The goal here isn't to become a better fighter who's constantly at war with their own urges. The goal is to become an architect of your own mind. And wow, this quote just nails it perfectly. Understanding the decision loop is like having the full blueprint for a manufacturing assembly line. Instead of trying to fix the broken product at the end, you can walk upstream and adjust the machinery, so the final output is aligned from the very start. It's all about adjusting the machinery, not just dealing with the consequences. So you see, true mastery of your life, it isn't about brute force discipline. It's about something much more elegant. It's about design. It's about truly understanding the internal architecture and the flow that creates your decisions, and then skillfully working with that system instead of constantly fighting against it. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. What would change for you if your very next choice wasn't some kind of test of your willpower, but was instead a conscious, deliberate act of design?